Sharon, the homeowner, had some concerns about indoor air quality because there was a gutter that overflowed during Mathew, and there was thoughts that water got inside the wall cavity, which it did, and so a contractor was employed that removed some of the drywall and some of the wet insulation, and this did cause molds to be dispersed into the first floor. The floor itself is wet and should be addressed, either dried or removed. Looking at it from down below in the crawl space, once the insulation was removed, you can see that there are numerous joists and subfloor areas that are wet, including the adjoining wall that shows a lot of water in the block and bacterial and fungal growth on the ground.
Here is the corner beneath the water vent, and you can see the effervescence and the staining that's occurred. And there's wet subfloor with mold growth on it. And that extends over at least 2 crawl space spots.
On the first floor, we examine the return air duct and see that there's a fair amount of debris within the air duct that should be cleaned out. The supply registers vary in the amount of debris that's in them, but they should be cleaned so that this organic matter doesn't become a food source for bacteria or mold. I took the camera and took pictures down within the ducts and could see some debris and some liquid that had been spilled in the ducts. Again, it would be better if the duct system was very clean. In the bathroom, there is some rusting and potential mold growth behind the supply register. Going into the attic, we see there is no attic ladder cover. This is important so when the attic gets superheated during the summer, it's not transferring that heat into the hallway. The HVAC system in the attic looks good, with the exception that where there is a metal distribution box and the secondary ducts coming off of it, those ducts leak, so there's a lot of wasted energy. In addition, inside the metal distribution box is debris.
Here in the attic, we have an air distribution system that is not sealed. All of these joints leak air, so we're losing about 20% of our conditioning air into the attic. Otherwise, the system looks fine. There is debris. There is air infiltration. All this black stuff shows that air from the attic is moving into the house or into the living area. But all in all, it's functioning well enough. The biggest concern here is the air ducts not being sealed. So they're allowing pollutants from the attic to be pulled into the system, as well as not being energy efficient because they're leaking air into the attic.
Entering the crawl space, we see that the exterior grate is up next to the crawl space door. This is an issue because when it rains, the water is not being dispersed far enough away from the home, and it's possible for some of this water to come back in the crawl space drain. So at first glance, the crawl space looks in good shape. However, on closer inspection, we are able to see that water has been collecting on top of the moisture barrier. This is allowing condensation to form on the air ducts, and then mold grows on the outside of the ducts as well. The air ducts, similar to the attic, are not sealed, so this is costing you in energy efficiency, as well as there is debris within the distribution boxes. There was no visual mold.
Here we're in the crawl space at a distribution box. And again, the joints have not been sealed, so it's inefficient, and there's extensive mold growth on the outside of the ducts, so it's able to get into the ductwork. The ductwork condensates. That's why we have puddles of water underneath. Here under the front porch stoop, you can see the mineral deposits indicating that there's water pressure on the other side. There is some mold growth up on the main beam. And again, mold growth on the outside of the flex duct. And in this area, we've got some starting on the joists. Here we have an open vented crawl space. Seasonal condensation is causing mold to grow on the outside of the air ducts. There's also condensation forming underneath the unsealed barrier and allowing bacteria to grow on the sides. That bacterial growth and its associated pollutants are then able to enter into the living area through the unsealed penetrations in the floor. There's not excessive mold growth on the joists, but there is on the outer layers of the ductwork. Part of the problem with a partially sealed crawl space moisture barrier is the moisture barrier allows condensation to form on the back side, and then bacteria and mold are able to grow on the untreated area, and then the toxins that they produce are able to follow the plumbing and the electrical and HVAC holes into the house. Here you can see tracks of slugs that are eating on the mold that's growing on the exterior surfaces of the ducts.
Air sampling was performed. A sample was taken outside, and then one sample on the first floor in the room that had the water damage, as well as 2 locations upstairs. The samples downstairs show 2 types of mold that are common with water damage: Chitonium and Stachybotrys. So it's recommended that the entire home be cleaned up and all the dust removed so that these elevated levels of mold are no longer a health hazard.